Yuuji was a poor youngster who was tormented by his father from an early age due to his lack of skill. He lived in the shadows of his brilliant sister, who made her family wealthy via her abilities. After a disaster at home, Yuuji became an orphan and was groomed by wicked people to become the world's coldest elite soldier. His excursion was one of the coldest ever witnessed. His parents disregarded him due to his lack of skill compared to his sister Kazuki. Her father was impressed by her sketches at an early age, and her ability surpassed that of famous artists. She won various art contests and sold her work for millions. Yuuji avoided his younger sister since he was teased when they were together. Kazuki stepped in to replace her brother's gap by playing with him and teaching him to throw balls. During their time together, his sister encouraged him to pursue his aspirations, believing in his remarkable potential. She was his sole source of happiness and inspiration to emulate her. Even if he made awful drawings, Mom would save them to encourage his confidence. Yuuji's father mocked his art, prompting him to trash it out of humiliation. Yuuji was approached by a stranger inside his home, who offered him a piece of chocolate from a mysterious package. Yuuji's father labeled him an embarrassment, but the unknown man smiled slyly. Kazuki suppressed her talent and dropped out of her art education in Paris over time. Instead, she suggested reading manga with her brother to help him meet friends and avoid loneliness. Yuuji's mother encourages him to make friends and avoid becoming like his father. While Yuuji's infrequent drawings became the family's main source of money, their treatment of her deteriorated. Every night, his family would go out to dinner, leaving him with just cold, stale bread. The only way he could consume the dry bread was to soak it in water. Kazuki demands Yuuji consume the food in the fridge, but Yuuji refuses, citing his parents' disapproval. Kazuki becomes increasingly depressed, apologizing for not knowing Yuuji's abuse and blaming her parents for it. Even still, nothing improved. As his father's hate grew, his mother began to neglect him to escape his fury. Yuuji arrived home late and informed his sister that he was playing with a buddy. Kazuki inquires about her gender and informs her that she is female. However, he is concerned that she may bully his new companion. She asks if his friends are acceptable for him and expresses frustration with his frequent friendships with ladies. Kazuki becomes envious and tells him to get her permission before making friends with ladies. Yuuji accepts and holds his hand, promising to find him the perfect girl. Later that day, Kazuki inquired if he wanted to bathe with her like normal siblings. Kazuki said that siblings often do this and questioned whether he had ever kissed a female, as shown in the comic. Kazuki kissed him and expressed her sincere love for him. She also taught him many things. Eventually, she enrolled in a conventional high school and joined the basketball team to conceal her exceptional abilities. She deceived her friends and even her parents, which terrified Yuuji the most. Yuuji relied on his sister and wished he could live like this till the disaster. A bus crashed into a ravine, and the sole survivor was a girl with red hair. Yuuji's father became depressed and resorted to alcohol. As his father's anger grew, his mother began concealing him whenever he returned home. Yuuji only remembers his father shouting at his mother, who would just apologize. Yuuji and his mother fled to a new home where he was finally treated as a normal kid when his father turned abusive. He enjoyed her cooking and felt like he was in heaven, despite their financial situation. They found happiness together while apart from their father. After a year, Yuuji's father discovered them again, bringing an end to their calm. Yuuji's father threatens his mother with another golden egg, prompting Yuuji to intervene. He couldn't stomach seeing his mother like way, but his father pushed him into the fridge. Yuuji gazed at his father, ready to finish him. His sister once asked him which hand he would use to kill a man. He consoles his mother, who asks him how far they should run this time. She instructs him to flee first and she would join him later, offering him her entire life savings. She advises him to rush to the train station and wishes him luck on his own. Yuuji immediately obeys his mother and rushes to the train station. After many hours, he begins to hear ambulance sirens. Yuuji returns home to find his father cut and discovers that he will never be able to communicate with his mother again. He lost consciousness and awoke in a hospital with just a message from his mother. She begged for pardon, reflecting on her mistakes and wanting for his life to continue. As an orphan, Rei took on the role of caretaker and disguised him as his younger sister. Yuuji tried to ignore his annoying guardian because he had walls to eat and sleep in. During one night, Rei's bodyguard attempted to harass Yuuji but was defeated by Yuuji. Rei was amazed at Yuuji's ability to protect himself and congratulated him on his actions. Yuuji wonders if Rei is insane. Rei promised to transform him into a powerful instrument and sent him to his military facility for training. Despite being Rei's favorite student and being the coldest soldier, he was often bullied by other students. The only person who was friendly to him was Marlene, a girl with no memory of her background. She treated him and saved her food for him, making him believe she was the one person he could rely on. On this island, Rei went by the name Oslo and trained with actual knives alongside Yuuji. He instructed him to rely on blades and kill before he was slain. He considered everyone, even his own family, to be his enemy. Oslo tricked him into believing that he was his sole ally. The final exam required him to kill the person in front of him, which turned out to be Marlene. He lunged at her, hitting and knocking her down. His quickness outmatched hers, and his strikes knocked her down. Despite her attempts to rise up, he kicked her back to the ground. However, images of his mother being hurt by his father began to rush across his mind. He remembered the pictures he saw that day, and his mind began to crumble during the match. Marlene took advantage of this, kicking him down and stepping on top of him while smirking. Yuuji thought that she was punishing him for his father's death by striking him. Yuuji had already lost and become a disgrace to Oslo. Marlene enters the detention cell to tend his wounds, sobbing and apologizing for causing him harm. Marlene was the sole source of communication for him until her graduation day. She said farewell and promised to meet him again. However, he never saw or spoke with Marlene again. Yuuji questioned whether he might have saved her by punishing her instead of being gentle after learning the terrible news from the nurse at her first job. Yuuji disguised himself as a maid to carry out his first assassination job after graduation. While he was preoccupied, Yuuji completed his mission. His assassination attempts were successful until they broke inside Oslo's home. Law enforcement surrounded Oslo and demolished his security. They uncovered an underground corridor with a steel door protecting it. After blowing it up, they discovered a white-haired youngster seated inside, and Yuuji's hair came off. Masako notices something unusual about the boy. Oslo managed to escape via the flood. Masako plans to take Yuuji to Japan, but JB chooses to accompany her to oversee them. Masako orders him to leave the hospital bed within 40 seconds. JB tells her to be gentler with the child after she slaps him in the head and threatens him. Yuuji is unable to respond to compassion, so Masako dismisses him and advises him to stop. She grips his face, declaring that she will be his deity from now on. Inside her home, she instructs him to change his unclean clothing, but what they find surprises them. His body is covered with scars and gunshot wounds, and he hasn't eaten in weeks. Masako orders JB to bring beverages and food for them, but she does not eat at the dinner table. Instead, when a fly approaches, he crushes it with his palm. As he stares at the fly, he freezes, yells in panic, and vomits. Masako arrives to console him, urging him not to puke in her awful house. Masako realizes his mind is more shattered than she believed while he sleeps at night. While bathing him, she discovered 2 gunshot wounds, several knife gouges, and fractured bones. Masako believes it would have been easier to let him die, but she remains committed to protecting him as his deity. Yuuji begs JB to help him when Asako tries to compel him to eat. Asako advises him to refrain from sweet-talking the naive blonde, citing her loneliness and gullibility.
You're a victim!
JB advises Yuuji to toughen up, but she is unaware of Asako's plans. JB realizes she is holding the plot after taking a careful look at the food in the kitchen. She rushes to the restroom and spends the day preparing food for Yuuji. JB pushes her wet blonde rice in Asako's face, prompting him to consume it, despite his initial stubbornness. Asako presents Yuuji with his own dog and instructs him to care for it properly. Yuuji names the body John Doe, a military moniker. When Asako sees him playing with his pet, JB notices him acting like a child for the first time. After a few months, Asako quits her work with the spy agency. JB cautions her that quitting may result in imprisonment or execution, and wonders if Yuuji is responsible for her transformation. Asako admits to fearing death in order to care for Yuuji, but she is also losing vision in her eye, hindering her ability to be a skilled shooter. That night, she goes outdoors and finds Yuuji looking at the sky and sobbing. Yuuji recalls Asako's advice to run faster to gain popularity among elementary school girls while on a run. Asako informs him that in middle school, nasty males who can fight are more likely to attract girls. She teaches him to be strong and fight for good, rather than harming others. She tells him to use whatever he needs to win, so he commands his dog to bite her. Finally, she informs him that warriors are only popular in middle school and females prefer intelligent individuals in high school. If only that were the case with me. Asako encourages him to read a variety of literature, including non-fiction, and promises to purchase him everything. After all of his reading, he discovers Asako cleaning her rifle and smoking. She asks whether he's ever shot one of them before and brings him to the wilderness the next day. He shoots his first shot from 300 meters and misses utterly. He's desperate to grab it in the next shot, and Asako offers him a present if he succeeds. He sights and shoots, striking his target. As promised, Asako sends him a case with the number 9029, her agency number. Yuuji will be the owner of this sniper weapon moving forward. She advises him to persevere and not give up on his goals. Yuuji asks Asako whether he may call her his master, considering she is not his mother or sister. She was not a father. The only thing she became for him was a master. During the winter, Asako gathers ammo for Yuuji, and the two go hunting together. When aiming at a deer, Asako advises him to avoid wasting bullets as they will cost taxpayers money. However, Yuuji falters and fails to draw the trigger. Asako recognizes his frailty and does not blame himself, as he has experienced more than other children. Yuuji wakes up to his dog howling, only to discover a bear had broken into their home. Yuuji runs to his bedroom with his revolver, but returns to see John bitten by the bear. Despite his intention to save his puppy, he is unable to shoot at the bear due to mental barriers. Yuuji gathers the fortitude to retrieve his puppy after the bear departs. Fear no longer holds him back from helping those he cares about. As he goes to aim, he stumbles on the snow and shoots, jamming his pistol. Yuuji defends himself from the bear's attack with his knife. Yuuji's thoughts is filled with phrases to terminate the bear when it knocks it away in a single hit. He blinds the bear's eye with a stick and then points his rifle at its head. He hears a rustling nearby and notices two cubs approaching his dog for food. Yuuji wonders why his dog and family have become food. He cries in anguish as he fires, wondering why it couldn't be another life unrelated to his own. When he returns with his dog's collar, Asako inquires about the incident. Yuuji admits that he couldn't kill the bear despite his best efforts. She pulls him to her chest and tells him that everything is okay. Yuuji wishes he could be as strong as Asako and die cheerfully, as they spend the dusk burying his dog's collar. Asako reminds him that his life isn't useless until he dies, and that he can't murder anything without a clear order. She reminds him that taxpayers provide his food and home, and he is responsible for protecting them. Previously, Asako stated that he couldn't die until he had slain 10 foes. But now he needs to save 10 people. She reminds him that even if he is too weak to pull the gun for himself, he should never hesitate to save someone else's life. A few years pass, and Asako informs JB that Yuuji has completed plot development. JB asks what type of tale she's referring about, and Asako responds that she is the story. Yuuji had increasing activity when he removed her plot armor and climaxed on her face, followed by lowering action. JB shouts at her for doing something she should not have done, but Asako explains that this is why her narrative would never grow. After all, they're a man and woman who have been living together for 2 years. Yuuji recalls being in the shower with Asako and her asking him about his birthday. Yuuji informed her that today was his birthday, and she inquired about his wishes. Yuuji informs her that he prefers a gentler guardian. She bites him, making him blush, and promises to give him the nicest present ever. He asks what it is, and she replies that she will be the present.
What do you mean by that?
JB inquires whether they had only done it once, as he recalls his initial experience. Asako reports that they have accomplished plot development every day since. Yuuji returns with the ramen, but JB pretends they were not conversing because she is terrified Yuuji would hear them. Asako explains that this is why she's never had a climax. She invites her to test her well-trained dog and advises her to take a drink while waiting. After a few bottles, Asako contacts Yuuji and assigns him a special job. JB is looking for Yuuji to entertain her now that she is utterly inebriated. He brings her to the bedroom and refuses to let her go. He addresses her by her first name, and instead of preparing a meaty feast, she gets consumed by his gun.
Sensational.
After a few years, Asako's health begins to decline. Yuuji begs her to quit drinking when her hands shake, as she is his last remaining companion. Despite being repeatedly asked whether she was unwell, she would always lie and claim she wasn't. But he saw there was something wrong with her physique. She became more drowsy and missed work due to health issues. Yuuji had to answer the phone for her since she couldn't answer it. On the other side, an agent ordered Asako to reply to the assignment and threatened her with imprisonment under Article 9. Yuuji started taking on jobs due to her present health. After a few days, JB inquires about Asako's absence from the job site. Asako explains that she was not the one doing the work. JB criticizes Asako for forcing Yuuji to accept her jobs, but Yuuji defends his action as a method to repay Asako in the future. JB is concerned about Yuuji's obsession with Asako's lifestyle, but Yuuji believes it is a means for him to find meaning in life. JB shouts at Asako and takes Yuuji outside, blasting guns into her ceiling as she leaves. Yuuji confesses to Asako that he aspires to be like her, and wonders if JB is aware of her answer. JB acknowledges that Asako may not want more of her, but is grateful for Yuuji's admiration. When asked whether this is the road he wants to take, he explains that it is the only way he can return his due to them. After they leave, Asako informs him that he is heading to America to join military school. Yuuji explains to a large black man why he is in this shithole. He ended his parents' lives. This startles him, but Yuuji claims he's only kidding. After certification, Yuuji advises the client to purchase his own shoes to avoid athlete's foot. Yuuji, who has been a soldier from childhood, offers his knowledge to the soldier, who initially believes he is kidding. In the bedroom, the man refers to Yuuji as an Asian boy, although he identifies as Japanese and introduces himself as Yuuji. Yuuji is mocked and referred to as Yujin due to his appearance, but he corrects him and tells him that his music is making him deaf. The man smiles and identifies himself as Danny Boner, referring to his large black cock. Danny calls Yuuji shorty, and he gives up. The commander smacks Yuuji in the face since he was reared by Asako, implying that he should be grateful and honored.
What?
During training, Danny falls behind and asks Yuuji to wait, but Yuuji orders him to cease smoking. Yuuji encourages Danny as they swim, but his large muscles continue to gas out. Danny is inspired to swim faster than a shark after being asked what he would do if a female drowned with a large plan. During lunch, Danny mocks Yuuji's new appearance, but Yuuji explains that their commander has been a nuisance lately. Danny dismisses her as unsuitable for marriage, but Yuuji finds her beautiful. Danny dismisses Yuuji as nuts, but Annie surprises him and takes his punishment. Sorry, I meant Annie punished Danny. Yuuji surprises the commander by shooting every bullet on target during range practice, a feat previously only accomplished by Asako, the world's finest sniper. A female overhears their chat and witnesses Yuuji getting awarded first place in sniping. She approaches him later at night and asks him to speak with her. When she introduces herself as Millie, Yuuji wonders why he exclusively attracts forceful women. He restrains her by the swimming pool after she hit him till she apologizes. He knows her as the second-place sharpshooter and asks what she wants. Millie informs him that she meant marksmanship, and they go to the range together. With her weapon, she explains that her father used to strike targets out of range, but she assumed it was due to his inebriation and deception. Yuuji misses his first shot, prompting her to remind him that he only has 6 shots left. Yuuji asks, "What color is the sky today?" before firing and nailing the target. He reassures Millie that her father wasn't lying, and she finds someone she can trust. After completing his training, he was flown overseas to take his final test. On the ship, Danny inquires about Yuuji's purchase of a lady's watch, despite his ability to obtain a car. Danny mocks his watch and Yuuji's Asian influence, implying that Yuuji is giving Millie the little hour hand while Danny is giving her the long minute hand.
Emotional damage!
Millie kicks him when he uses foul words. While they bicker, a weirdo is playing a dating simulator with his younger sister and loses his head when she removes her plot armor. They wonder how he can do this so brazenly, as well as what language he is speaking. Yuuji is well versed in the subject and recognizes himself as a Japanese cultural representative. Yuuji was trained to follow orders and gain confidence, eventually leading to deployment in the battlefield. Yuuji's team consists of a former car thief and gangster from Arizona, a destitute lady who used to sell herself in bathrooms, an anime nerd who wants his sister, and a sharpshooter with no killing ability. Despite being the most worthless group in the army, Danny interrupts and asks if he wants to get the bird for food. Yuuji fires and hits the bird, but then throws up. He considers how he would deal with killing someone if he were subjected to this treatment by a bird. Inside their tents, they meet their acting commander on the field. Yuuji and his team continued preparing traps, but one night they suspected adversaries were approaching. As the combat begins, Yuuji shoots to eliminate the attacker, but then vomit up. Yuuji and his pals battle on the front lines while waiting for reinforcements, but he starts to fail. The commander instructs him to close his eyes and accept the possibility of losing his only family and friends. Throughout this period, he has enjoyed fun and food with his family, who are all battling to defend him from the enemy. The commander reminds him that the enemy isn't human, and while it's okay to delay while murdering, he shouldn't let his family die helplessly. His commander authorizes him to murder them and accepts full responsibility for the outcome. The adversary drop down one by one. Despite Yuuji's objections, the commander continues to count the number of opponents neutralized. Not one shot is wasted, and the whole opposing front line is destroyed. Yuuji wants to fight, but the commander tells him that everything is great and he may sleep soundly. Yuuji awakens on Mila's lap after falling unconscious and finds solace in her presence. She assures him that he has rescued everyone and that they will always support one another. She also promises not to let him die. After a while on the battlefield, his resolve became stronger, unaffected by the numerous conflicts and explosions around him. Danny loses focus on the purpose of the battle and the significance of victory. Yuuji and his pals endure their deployment and overcome a traumatic past. Danny asks Millie whether she is okay, with her boyfriends leaving her before departing for his hometown. She reveals that they ended their romance after saying their goodbyes yesterday. Danny intervenes and offers to relieve her distress by smashing her pussy with his tenenture.
Stop it. Get some help.
Millie prays to God for Yuuji's happiness and success. Yuuji boards a modest house as the evening falls. He returned to his familiar mountain on a windy day and found the roots to be just as he remembered them. Asako welcomed him home and believes he has matured. Yuuji expresses to Asako that seeing her face was the first time he felt grateful for his survival, following significant storyline developments. Yuuji professes his wish to spend his entire life with her, despite his unknown future intentions. After his last training at Vancouver International Airport, he never saw Danny's bright face again. As everyone grieved, Yuuji wondered when Danny's joke would be over. Yuuji's work in Spain was cut short after a few months when JB urgently requested that he come home owing to Asako's breakdown. The only information he had was that she had a chronic disease caused by being shot several times. Doctors attempted to heal her, but her body had grown exceedingly frail due to the medications she was obliged to ingest throughout her deployment. JB informed Yuuji that Asako has been falling asleep frequently and for longer periods of time. Yuuji apologizes to Asako for taking so long to come home. Yuuji asks whether she is dying while she holds his hand, to which she replies, yes. She apologizes for lying to him about her intention to stay with him. He starts weeping, saying he hasn't learned everything from her yet. She begs him to stop crying and become a man as she taught him. She informs Yuuji that she has now grasped what her life means, and that she is going to. Her willpower enabled her to save him and spend her life with him. Yuuji tears, describing her as his one saving grace in a life full with betrayals. He says he wanted to believe in her to the end since she was his sole reason for life. Asako advises him to prioritize his own well-being moving forward. After all, that's the kind of man she's always wanted him to be. He admits to her that he is unable to do so and relies on her for survival. When he felt chilly, he could turn to her for warmth. He wonders about his future without her, but she pushes him to discover it for himself, persevere, and become the man she always wanted him to be. Yuuji questions who granted her permission to pass away, despite her acceptance of death. Even if it was God, Yuuji wants to fight him off to keep her by his side. Asako advises him to quit acting so stupid. He spends the remainder of the day with her, who compliments him on the beautiful stars today. Yuuji glances outdoors and tells her that the stars are beautiful today. Asako recalls Yuuji sobbing while gazing at the skies when he initially moved in. She asks what he was thinking about, but Yuuji says he doesn't recall. Asako chuckles, indicating that she anticipated his answer. She expresses fatigue and requests a nap. Yuuji told Asako she could sleep, and she never awoke again. JB's subordinates removed her body, and Yuuji struggled to cope until her cremation. JB informed Yuuji about the discovery of a bullet among Asako's ashes, which Yuuji believes reflects her characteristics. After weeks, Yuuji worries if he would face the same fate as Asako. But he won't let that happen until he fulfills his pledge to Asako to save 5 lives. His sole remaining goal is to see her again someday. Yuuji sleeps on the floor for days until JB wakes him up. Staying in the cabin with Asako's presence fills Yuuji's mind with inappropriate ideas. So JB moved him into her apartment to live with her. They believed that by living together, they might heal one another's wounds and provide support. During dinner, JB expresses his need for a new toothbrush, citing the existing one as being excessively soft. JB asks if Yuuji has been using her toothbrush. Yuuji responds that she has been brushing her mouth with his long and harsh toothbrush, therefore it shouldn't matter. JB realizes how foolish she was and purchases 2 more toothbrushes. Yuuji apologizes, but admits she should have expected him to be as harsh as Asako. JB was troubled by Yuuji's resemblance to Asako, and they struggled to connect after that. She stayed awake and asked whether being with her reminded him of Asako. One night, she sobbed and apologized for finding it too tough. JB began to come home less frequently as the days passed. With so much free time, he considered embarking on a journey. Asako advised him to halt and navigate unfamiliar paths. Despite making poor decisions, it's important to widen one's perspective and explore new opportunities. Despite promising to take him on a motorbike ride, she never followed through. Yuuji gets up and tells JB he's leaving on an adventure. He vows to return. Yuuji was amazed she let him leave so easy, despite feeling lonely at night and riding Asako's motorcycle. Days pass as he meets individuals from all walks of life while camping. Despite the rain, he sends Julia a note expressing his love. The protagonist's bike breaks down in the middle of the road, forcing him to pull it. A guy approaches Yuuji and offers him a ride to a secure location, but Yuuji dismisses him as a fool who has nowhere to go. Yuuji is affected by the man's laughter, which reminds him of the pleasures of youth. At night, he wonders whether being young is what he's missing, so he emails JB that he's returning home. He brings a drink to Asako's grave and apologizes for not comprehending anything. Yuuji apologizes for damaging the bike, but Asako asks whether he had fun. He tells her he had a good time on his travels but is not sure what he should do next. He believes that his voyage has taught him what he is missing and that he should reconsider his childhood and schooling. Yuuji ceased sharing his life narrative with JB when military leaders instructed him to accomplish a mission under Article 9. They warn him that failure is not an option and refusing this assignment would be considered treason. Yuuji assumes a prone stance and aims squarely at his target. He recalls Oslo's music box and the phrases that helped shape him into the person he is now. Yuuji confirms the target in his scope, but soon realizes it is the worst-case situation. Watch this video till next time, my fellow amazing storyline masters.